is Sunday, 6th of November, and not that many fireworks going off last night, fortunately, which was good because the kids were in bed fairly early. But hopefully you managed to enjoy some fireworks wherever you were. Maybe your pets didn't, but hopefully you managed to enjoy some. I do like fireworks. Big fan. Right, rambling already, haven't even started yet. So we shall carry on with our A to Z, even though we've missed a few out because I've done them earlier on in the challenge. So this particular one was a very kind donation from Kirsty and Stuart of the Whisky Corner. And if you've not visited their blog, which is the website address is here, go and check them out. Follow them on Twitter and Facebook. They're a lovely couple, really, really nice. And thank you very much, Stuart and Kirsty, for this. So Craigellachie is a distillery which is here, and you could almost call it the heart of Speyside. It is literally just over the river from Macallan. It's quite a highly regarded place to stay for whisky tourists, because you've got Aberlour down the road, you've got Balvenie, you've got Glenfiddich nearby. There's loads of distilleries within almost walking distance, and the Craigellachie Hotel is probably the most famous hotel in the area. Very, very picturesque. Craigellachie itself is actually stems from, well, it's not stems from, it's it means rocky hill, and it's essentially named after the fact that the village of Craigellachie is kind of built halfway up one of the hills that overlooks the River Spey. So the distillery itself was founded in 1891 by a group of, they were like blenders and merchants that kind of bandied together and decided that they were going to sort of run their own distillery. And amongst those, one of the guys that was sort of the leader of the group was a guy called Alexander Edward, who we've come across before because he inherited the Benrinnes distillery, and then also created the Altmore distillery in 1895, a few years later. Somebody else that was also involved was a guy called Peter Mackie, who we have covered, but you might not remember because that was way back when we did Lagavulin, which was about dram number 6, and White Horse as well, because he founded the White Horse company. Now, Edward retired, and Mackie actually took over the running of the distillery in 1915, and by 1919 the distillery itself had been fully acquired from the group that had been set up initially, and it was part of the White Horse Company, I think they were called, by that point. It was acquired by Distillers Company Limited in 1927. What wasn't acquired by Distillers Company Limited by that point? Not many. And by 1998 it sort of trickled along, and it was doing okay, and it was used in White Horse and White Horse and other blends, and there wasn't really much of a single malt of it about. And then it was sold to Dewar and Sons in 1998, who are now part of the Bacardi conglomerate, behemoth, whatever you want to call it. Now in late 2014, all of a sudden there was this announcement from Dewar's stroke Bacardi that they were going to launch a range called The Last Great Malts. And this was going to be a range of distilleries that they owned, where they were going to market them as single malts. Now, even late 2014, not that long ago, we're properly into non-age statement. Everything, it seems to be, is non-age statement at the moment. And this would have been an ideal situation for them to go, right, we're going to do, you can have an Altmore, because it's Aberfeldy, Altmore, Craigellachie, Deveron, Macduff, Glendeveron, whatever you want to call it, and Royal Brackler as well. Those are the 5 that they were launching, and they could quite easily have said, it's going to be a non-age statement, it will be about £100, it will be in a fancy packaging for the 5 of them, and it will be collector's items and blah blah blah. And they didn't go down that route, to give them the credit. They actually have given them age statements. So the one I've got from Kirsty and Stuart is the Craigellachie 19 years old, but they actually have a 13, a 17. The 19 is, it was, and it may well still be, exclusive to travel retail, so duty-free, airports, that sort of thing, and a 23-year-old and a 31-year-old as well. So this is what the 19-year-old looks like, but all the packaging is very similar from the others as well. And I love the labelling on it. It's one of those where I talked about it in the Bailey Nickel Jarvie blended whiskey, and go back and see that, because I've got the bottle, because that's actually that was a bottle that was given to me and I now have it, and that is one where it's like an old-timey label, but it's not quite designed right, and it's not quite pleasing to the eye, and it's just a little bit raggedy. Whereas the Craigellachie it's old-timey, but it works. It's something about the design just works really well, and I love it. I think it's got bags of character to it, and I just think it looks fantastic. In terms of the ages themselves, they're unusual ages. Normally it's a 10, a 12, a 15, an 18, a 21, 25, 30. That tends to be the progression that you get with age ranges. And it's almost like they've deliberately gone, right, do you know what? We're going to do odd years here. We're going to do some really unusual ones. We're going to do a 13. We're going to do a 17. We're going to do a 19. We're going to do a 23 and then a 31. Just to be different, just to be awkward. Now, I'm surprised there's not more. The 13-year-old is their standard version, and it used to actually be there was an official bottling, which was a 14-year-old Craigellachie, but these last great malts ranges has superseded that. If there's any other, because I can't think of any, to be honest, off the top of my head, if there's any other standard bottling, like the entry-level bottling of another malt distillery that's an official bottling that you can think of that's a 13-year-old or an 11-year-old, let me know, because it generally seems to be, it starts at 10 or 12, and then the next one tends to be 15. There's Clynelish 14, but I can't think of another 13, and I can't think of an 11 as well, which is kind of like the standard version. Which is, why not? Why isn't there? Why does it always have to be a 10-year-old? Why does it have to be a 12-year-old? Why can't it be an 11? Why can't it be the fact that if they leave it for 11 years, that's as good as it's going to be, or that's where they want to release it, giving it the extra year, but not going to a 12-year-old? Why does it have to be 10 and 12? It just really seems to be this kind of unwritten rule that your single malts start at a 10-year-old. That's the age statement. You very, very rarely get an 8-year-old. Now, I know Compass Box have just released a 3-year-old, but I think it's a blended malt rather than a blend. And the reason they called it a 3-year-old is that it has apparently a tiny, tiny amount of 3-year-old whiskey in it, and then some really, really older stuff. But because on an age statement, you've got to, if you put the age on it, it's got to be the age of the youngest whiskey in there. They've kind of done it as a two fingers to the Scotch Whisky Association by calling it a 3-year-old, even though it's such a small proportion and the rest of it is a lot older. So why not have an 8-year-old? It's kind of this, if it's under 10-year-old, people aren't going to buy it because they think it's too young. Well, why not an 11? It really is kind of like so stuck in the ways that it's got to be a 10 or a 12. Anyway, I digress. So, this particular one, 19-year-old, like I say, exclusive to travel retail, and it's about, on travel retail, it's about 100 quid, something like that. Master of Malt did have it listed, sold out, but they were selling it for 93. But I'm sure the 17-year-old was about 85, 90 quid. Why am I pouring that in there? Need my jigger first. So yes, I know travel retail, obviously it's duty free. You tend to get slightly better value for money because you've got to pay for a plane ticket to get onto that side and all this lot. But it seems to be a good price compared to what the 17-year-old is. It's 46% as well. In terms of what it's matured in, whether it's sherry or bourbon or what, I don't know. I'm not sure. No colouring, no chill filtration, nothing added. That's about it, really. But I'm sure there are some of you watching that have probably been to Craigellachie, and the distillery, I think itself, gets a little bit kind of sidelined because there's Macallan and there's Abelard and there's Balvenie around the corner and all this lot. But it might be that this ends up being a better whiskey than Macallan. I don't know, because I've not got to Macallan yet. That's a bit later on. So, interesting. It's slightly spicy, but it's a really soft spice. It's like cinnamon and nutmeg. It's not really smoky. You could call it smoky, but it's not. It's not a smokiness. It's this really gentle, sweet spice. If it's peppery, it's white pepper, like a really, really mild, light white pepper. But there is something just tickling the nose buds. There's a nice sweetness to it. We're getting towards sugared almonds territory again. But there's a light touch to it. It's nice. It's delicate again though. There's a lot on there. There's a lot to pick up. I did catch a couple of bits looking through, and a few people saying the 17-year-old is quite tropical, like mangoes, and not really on this. But there is something slightly tropical about it. It's really dancing about, and it's really light and deft, but very, very pleasant indeed. Whoa, spicy, really spicy on the palate. Not what I was expecting at all. The nose is light, and there is a bit of depth to it, but it's kind of slightly playful. Whereas on the mouth, the spice really comes through, and it becomes more of a chili spice. So whereas the nose is delicate nutmeg and soft sweet cinnamon, almost like cinnamon whirls, that kind of sweetness that you get. This is more like, almost like chili powder, but there's an underlying sweetness to it. 46% is about bang on for the percentage as well, because it gives you a little bit of a kick and a little bit of heat, but it's not overpowering. But I think if it was lower, if it was 43 or 40, it would die off a little bit too quickly. It's a really nice balance. There is a fudginess to it, but it's a fudge infused with chili flakes, very much so. You know, you get like the actual chili flakes that you can sprinkle on top of pizzas and things like that. It's fudge made with that, and maybe chocolate as well. You know, chocolate and chili is a really good combination that kind of shouldn't work but does, and this has got elements of that. Definite chili flakes. The white pepper's turned into not really black peppercorns. You know, we're not talking like Talisker pepperiness, but it is surprisingly spicy for a Speyside. For what you consider like a classic Speyside character. It's almost like it's got Speyside maltiness, but then this extra kick of a kind of, you know, it's been off to Mexico and had a few enchiladas and stuff and come back, and it's cooking with jalapenos and things like that. It's not blow your socks off, and it's not heat, but it really is quite unusual, but really interesting because of it. Much more malty on that one, and a bit of tropical fruit coming through on that. It was almost as on that mouthful, the chili died down. Maybe my palate was getting used to it, and there was a tropical, slightly mango, kind of soft fruits, almost like a peachiness coming through as well. I'd really like to try the others of this. I'd really like to try the 17. I think the 17 might be more to my taste than this would be. I like this a lot. But I've got a feeling from what the few little bits that I read, the 17 is actually slightly more tropical and a little bit more lighter, and not as spicy as this. And I think my personal taste may err more towards that. I'd really like to try the 13 as well, just to see kind of, you know, what's the extra age done to this. Actually, is it you know, being younger, more youthful? Has it got more vitality to it? But that is well worth checking out. That's really, really good. The 13-year-old, I think you're looking at about 40 quid, something like that, kind of 35 to 40 quid, maybe a little bit more, but it's certainly worth giving a go. It's a really good packaging. You know, as a present, it would certainly stand out and be very unusual. But that, I like that. I really do like that. It's got bags of character to it, and it's very, very interesting. And that's always good in a whiskey generally. Good stuff. Right, quick rinse out, and then we shall crack on with another. I'll see you then. Cheers.